Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMScast. My name is Chris Badgett and I'm joined by a special guest, Janet Kafadar from janetkafadar.com. She is a course creation expert and we're really excited to have you on the show. Thank you for coming, Janet.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Uh, Janet shares a unique knowledge set that I love to geek out about, so we're going to have a lot of fun on the show. We're going to get into instructional design, marketing funnels, the different stages people are at when they're trying to build their courses. And a lot of what we're going to get into is how to remove roadblocks that are standing in the way of course creation, because it's really easy to get sidelined, distracted, or slowed down, or failure to launch, because there's all these different things that need to come together to make it happen. One of the things I'd like to get into with Janet, it has to do with her approach to instructional design. I heard her on the Productize podcast with Brian Castle, and I was really interested to follow up with her because she was talking about one of the things she does with her Done For You service is work with experts on getting their course launched and set up. And she talked about a process of really getting into the slides. So there's this whole problem that happens where if you're an expert and you want to have an online business, you need to go through this huge gap, which is called instructional design, not to mention the selling and the membership and locking down the content and getting the money and all that. But you actually got to take that expertise and turning it into an online course. How do you do that, Janet? Talk to us about slides.
Oh my goodness. Yes, no, I totally hear you with what you're saying there. And that's a really big problem that my clients have. So what I've found over the years, I've been doing this for about 4 years now, coming up to 4 years in this business. I had a previous business before. But in this business, what I found with my clients is at the very beginning of trying to get them, I was working, it was just me at the time, working with my clients to try and tease the content out of them and get it down on paper and get it down on slides, and then in a way that I can translate that and so that their students and their learners can get the most out of it. But it just didn't work. Now, when I did this in my corporate setting, it was fine. You could quite easily go ahead and you talk with whoever the subject matter expert, and and you can sit down and have a clear discussion about that. But because most of my clients are overseas, I'm here in Australia, most of them are either US or Canada or UK, having that fluid discussion didn't happen so easily. So a way in which I found to work for me and my team and for my clients as well is for them to just get out a blank slide, a blank slide deck with nothing on it. It doesn't have to be fancy, nothing at all, and just write 1 point per slide. Now I say it like that because that's literally how it needs to be. 1 point on this slide, 1 point on another slide. And yes, you may end up with about 200 slides in the end, but it works because then I get my clients to then record themselves talking through each of those points. And so the things that they may not necessarily say to me come out when they're talking through it on the slide. So things that they may want to get across, or an area that they wanted to elaborate on, they can do that quite freely. Then it's easy for my team to then go away and listen to what they're saying and then translate that into an engaging slide deck that helps the learner get to an outcome. So that's the way we found it to work the best. And my clients, students and learners seem to get the best results from that. So if anyone's kind of struggling and that's their big roadblock and they don't necessarily have a team or anyone to help them, that is my best advice to you. 1 point per slide, and just record yourself doing that, and then you'll realize that there are bits that you may not say that come out that actually really do help you, and you can use them either in the slide deck or you can use them in worksheets or anything like that. So yeah, I hope that's answered your question. I think I went a really long way around your question.
No, that's really good. So what happens if somebody, doesn't do that, or what is the default, mode of operation for an expert if they're not going 1 point per slide? Like, what's the alternative?
Well, the reason that I like this method the best is because it works if you know your content and you know your subject matter inside out. Now, if you don't and you're kind of not sure about it, this is not going to work, this method. And if that's the case, you really shouldn't be creating a course, because you should only be creating it if you are an expert at what you're doing. So if someone is kind of struggling with this, then don't, and that kind of even freaks you out a little bit, then don't worry about it. Just go ahead, just get out a slide deck and just either type it out, or use images. Like, I'm a big fan of images, and I'm a visual learner, so I have to have images. Like, I can't, text just doesn't work for my brain. So having images or even symbols, or those little icons that you get, where it's just like a person sitting at a laptop or something, or just like little outline images, use those instead. Use diagrams to help illustrate your point or whatever it is that you need to get across. So that's another way in which you can go about it, if kind of putting 1 point per slide is not not ideal for you.
That's fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit about your done for you service. What what is what would your team then do with that slide presentation?
Yeah, so it's then their job to go through. So let's imagine the course is 4 or 5 modules, and there are maybe 3-4 lessons per slide, per module. Then it's their job to go through and then translate what the client has said in that recording and in that plain deck that they've sent across to us, and then translate that into their branded slides or whatever it is.
So
But
are they re-recording the presentation, or just is this an editing function, or they were just collecting research, or how does it work?
Yeah, so they're collecting all the information from that recording that they've done. They're then creating a brand new slide deck and interpreting what the client has said, either using images or diagrams or whatever it is, and putting those all into a slide deck, handing it back to the client, and then they can go and re-record it, ready for us to then upload into their members area. But prior to that, a lot of work on the actual structure, the outline, what's going to be said inside of each lesson and each module has already been determined beforehand. So we never really get to a point where a lesson is like anything more than 20 minutes long. We always try and cap it at the 20-minute mark, because people lose interest and no one wants to watch a video for 30 minutes. So it's really important that we see everything from the learner's perspective and be like, okay, really conscious about how they're going to be engaging with this information. Where are they going to be? Are they going to be on their phone whilst their son or daughter is at swimming? Are they going to be in front of their computer? Like, being mindful of that really helps us make sure that the content is stronger. So then that's what my team then go away and do, and work on the slides for the client and then hand it back to them for recording. So yeah, it is quite a lengthy process, but especially for my clients who are time poor, like they just don't have the time to sit and try and put all the pieces together and work out what needs to go on the slides and all of that. That's our job, to take that information, their expert knowledge, and turn that into a course for them.
That sounds like a really professional approach. It also sounds like a very professional expert who sees the value in getting some help. Because if I'm an expert and I'm gonna do the work of making 200 slides where I'm going over these key points around my expertise, for me, it makes a lot of sense that I want an instructional designer who really knows their craft to help take that further. So I love what you're doing, and you're also making it an iterative process where it then comes back to the expert. Am I right? Where then they are going to come in with some voice, or
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So it's all their voice and all their recording. So they go through the slide that we send them. And most of the time there are like a couple of things that they want to change, and they can change that when they get it back. That's fine. It doesn't have to come back to us to do. But it works quite smoothly because they know when the slides are coming to them. And then I tell them, and my team tell them beforehand, okay, you're going to have to block out at least, an hour or an hour and a half in your calendar on Thursday, because we'll need you to sit down and do your recordings, and then so it can come back to us. And then they just put it in a Dropbox folder when it's done. So and there isn't really much editing like to that once it's done.
Because
They
you did
just
the hard work of like
because
figuring out
yeah,
in the slide creation process. That's
that's
beautiful.
right. So that happened, and even at the very beginning where we're working on the slides and all of that stuff, so working on the lessons and what's going to be said and how it all links together and all of that stuff, there's not very much for us to do. Maybe just put some intros and outros if we need to, if the client has that. So to anyone that's kind of listening, like, my best advice, like, do your planning and really deep diving into the content structure and how it's going to hang together and what's going to be in it, and then start recording, because that frees you up a whole heap of time when it comes to the editing side of things, or if there's any editing and kind of getting things uploaded, because that in itself gives a whole heap of extra time. So do as much of that work up front, and then it will save you in the long run.
That's beautiful. That's almost counterintuitive. But I see a lot of people who, just put a Himalayan effort into creating content, and then someday later they figure out the editing process. But why
Yeah.
not, make it a little more structured on the front end so that the editing on the back end is a lot more minimal.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Like, it may just be a few ums and ahs or something like that, but I normally just tell my clients, okay, just pause it, and then get yourself together again and start again. Like, don't even worry about it. Don't think, oh, I've got to start from the beginning or something. No, don't worry, just press pause, just keep going, because as soon as you think, oh god, I've got to do it again, then what happens, you kind of get in your head and you start fumbling, and it just makes it really difficult. So I'm like, you've only got an hour and a half in your calendar, remember. So don't even worry about it. So and then
the heavy lifting of the core structure and curriculum is already there. So, I mean, that's
yeah,
really the
yeah.
biggest worry. So,
Yes, yeah, exactly right. So, and they feel, relieved. They're like, oh, okay, I've got this and it's fine. And then, it always comes back, oh, I'm really sorry. Around the 10-minute mark, I really mumbled it. I'm like, don't worry about it, it's fine. We'll just cut it out. It's all good.
good stuff.
So,
Well,
yeah.
I have to ask you, I need to understand a little bit of the story behind all this. This is a really unique skill set. And you mentioned I believe in the corporate clients in the past or something. Like, how did you develop this skill?
Yeah, so God, really interesting question. So I in my corporate days, I worked for a management consultancy, and we did a lot of learning and development and creating workshops and training programs for government departments here in Australia. So I am an Australian citizen, but I was born in the UK. So I've been here for about 8 years now. So when I first moved out here, one of my, this was the main job that I had, and very different from what I was doing in London, which was I was working in advertising and marketing and stuff. And when I moved out here, I wanted to do something totally different. So I launched myself into working with this management consultancy, worked as a project manager there, then kind of worked my way up as kind of a consultant and working on creating and developing the course content. So so once I did that and was working, I really got to see how courses or how programs, because these weren't courses so much then, they were a more of like 3-day workshops or 3-day mastermind, so to speak. And it was really interesting at a really high level, a government level, having to help these leaders within government, help them get to an outcome, and maybe over the span of 12 months or over like a quarter or something like that. So the content that we had to create had to be really robust to lead them to an outcome. And so that kind of curriculum, e-learning, development, kind of came about then I had my son and my other 2 kids, so I've got 3 kids, and then I just realized, like, especially when I had my son and my eldest, I can't do this. I can't work for anyone, and I don't want to. I think it was more the fact that I just didn't want to work for anyone else. I just wanted to do my own thing, and I'd already had that niggling in the back of my mind, but I had no idea what that was. And so once I had my son, my eldest, sorry, I kind of figured out, like, what am I going to do with myself? Like, how's it going to look? I didn't even imagine that it would look like how it is today. Like, it wasn't even on my radar. And so when I first started, I kind of did a bit of VA work for people to kind of, figure out what it was I wanted to do. And that didn't work at all. Having a newborn baby at that stage, my son and I had to go to sleep school. We have sleep school here in Australia, which helps new mums kind of figure out what to do with their babies. So I spent 3 days trying to learn how to put my son to sleep and myself to sleep, because it was just we were really struggling. And shortly after that, I was searching on the computer. I think I came across, I don't think it's like Brendan Bouchard's like YouTube video or something. You know how it is. You click on something, you end up like randomly somewhere. And I watched his video all about, living your purpose and doing your own thing. And then I clicked on something else, and then I ended up on a sales page for a course. Now, I bought the course, and it wasn't Brendan Bouchard's, by the way. And I bought it. I went in there and I thought, holy smokes, what is this? Like, I couldn't believe it. I thought, and I've just paid $1,000 for this. What is this course? Like, it was really messy, totally all over the place. Yeah, the content was okay, but just the structure was not there. Like, just the delivery of the course, the content itself and the slides, I just thought, wow, is this for real? So, and that is really where it began. I thought, God, there must be someone teaching people how to do this. Surely there must be. And at the time, this is 4 or 5 years ago now, the landscape's a little bit different now. I couldn't really see anyone. Yeah, there were a few people here and there, but not that many. And I thought, well, it looks like people, and then I realized that the expert industry, there are people that need help with this, to create products, to leverage their time, etc. Then that's where it really began. And I just kind of, one step at a time, just put one foot in the other, and just started helping people out with creating courses, because what I was doing already in my corporate days was it was already really transferable to what I wanted to do. And I just nerded out on tools and plugins and all of that stuff. I enjoy that, so it wasn't a big deal for me to kind of figure it out. And I kind of had a knack for making sure that my clients were using the right ones and the right fit for their business and their goals. So yeah, that's pretty much a pretty short version of how my business came about.
That's super cool. I love that story. And you're right. There's this whole expert industry, and there's a lot of focus on the e-commerce or the selling or the launching, but not so much on instructional design. And I mean, even like community building, like list building, or, growing a following on Facebook and stuff. There's a lot of information and stuff out there, but the act of actually teaching through the internet, there's a huge gap. So
yes,
I heard you in that gap, and I was like, I got to go talk to Janet and get her here, because people need to hear about this part, because it's important. And I'm also a big believer in, there's a lot of escape the 9-to-5 type stuff. I mean, I have kids at home. My kids, we do the homeschooling thing. We're home. I spend a lot of time with my kids. I love the lifestyle. But I also know there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge that we can pull out of the corporate world of, management consulting, like you mentioned. And, there's a lot of, ideas and information and research and investment that have gone into figuring things out at the corporate level that can come down to small business and startup. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel down here. We just need to understand and know some best practices.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really great thing that you brought up. So I remember in my early days, like I had a lot of people reaching out to me like, oh, can you help me start my business? And I was like, I have no idea. Like, I'm just starting mine. Like, I am not the right person to be speaking to. But what I found quite interesting was that a lot of these people, and you know, and that could have just been, you know, their preference, were really just discounting what they knew how to do really well in their corporate jobs. And I found that so what I was doing already, I just transferred over into my own business, really. So I wasn't really moving too far away from that. And, you know, if to anyone listening, if you are in that place where like, oh, I don't know what to do, or I'm not sure which direction to go in, yeah, you can go and, you know, follow your passion, you know, do what you really want to, but don't discount what you know how to do. If you're really good with processes and systems or project managing, like seriously, just move forward with that for now until you kind of figure out what it is that you want to do kind of further along down the track. Like I think you're so right that there's so much investment of time and energy has been put into us as people in our corporate careers. So just kind of use it and leverage it to your advantage. But then also going to what you said just a minute ago about people really focusing in on the marketing and community managing and all of that stuff. I always say to my clients and the type of clients that I work with, I say to them, don't worry about the sales and marketing stuff. If you focus on your message, the positioning of your course, and you're already an expert in what you're doing and you are already doing it every day, it will sell because you're already doing it and you're already serving people who need what you have. You're just trying, you know, repackaging it and presenting it in a different way. So the sales and marketing stuff will come. It won't happen overnight. Don't believe anyone who says you're gonna, you know, blow the roof off in 30 days. They are lying. Like, it's just gonna take some time to figure it out. If it doesn't happen, you know, you will get some sales, but it may not happen like as some may say. And it's just an iterative process. You know, you just got to keep working at it, updating it, changing it, tweaking things here and there to be able to get it to a point that you think, all right, I think it's never going to be done, just like a website, but it'll get to a point where like I feel satisfied with it and I'm getting the desired results that my students require from it. So yes, doing the work up front on the course structure is hands down the most important thing to do.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'd encourage anybody listening to this to press pause and go back to listen to what Janet just said there, because it's not just about the marketing. And if you're already getting paid every day to do a job, or you're in a job, looking outside, looking at this whole online education industry, and your employer is giving you money to do stuff, like, it's a very valuable skill.
Yeah,
And tailing off with what you said there at the end, having it be an iterative process, even what you do in your services are iterative. And that, like, I love that it's not just like, okay, there's this starting line and, you know, the money comes in and then the product comes out and you're good to go. There's a little bit of back and forth with the customer in terms of getting the course curriculum dialed. And, you know, it's almost like a done with you service, I would call it, like, where, it is done for you, but there's a component where the customer puts something in, you put something better out, then they take
yeah,
it and then they do more with it. That then creates the ultimate awesome product. And that whole
yeah.
iterative approach to collaboration and consulting and productized service, I think, is really powerful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it really works. I've taken about probably a good year now, up until now. So last year, this point is where things kind of really took off and started to feel more like, okay, right, we got this. Like, we got this process kind of down, and it's working for us. Whereas before, it was pretty much, I'm not going to lie, it was a hot mess. So
How do we start, though? I mean, I recommend that. I'm doing a book club right now around this book about instructional design called Design for How
yeah,
People Learn. And,
Yeah.
there's skill development. Skill has to happen. I mean, it has to
Yeah.
you have to work on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I 100% believe that. So yeah, so it was really messy. It was very stressful. And I not long had my third child about a year ago. So it was really quite difficult, and I was feeling quite burnt out and thinking, oh God, I'm just going to close the whole thing down and go on holiday. I was just over it. And then a friend of mine said, well, why don't you just hire someone else? And it didn't even occur to me, like, oh yeah, maybe it shouldn't be just me and my assistant. Maybe I should bring on someone else. And then at that point is when I brought on a project manager that they deal with the client. So they only kind of come to me when they have something they're not sure about, but they kind of do the client delivery of the work and kind of manage that communication between them. So that really has kind of freed me up now to just have some breathing space. And I can't believe I've waited so long to even do that. It's just, I hit my head every day. I'm like, God, why did I do that before?
Well, I have to ask you about this, and I guess it's probably a skill that also came from the corporate time. But in order to successfully bring in project management, it's helpful to be skilled at developing processes, so
Yeah.
for them to manage. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
just being like, here you go. You're just trying to stick a body on a problem.
Oh
But
God. Yeah.
I think you've done more than that based on what I'm hearing. How did you get
Yeah.
so good at process development?
You know what? I think I just really love it. I
Okay.
think, and I didn't realize that I really thrive on a process and knowing how something works. Like, I'm one of those people, like, if I think back to my corporate days, like, I wanted to know what I needed to do and the steps that I needed to take. Leave me to go and do it, and I'll come back if I have questions. Like, I don't want to keep bothering someone. And I think that's something that stuck with me. And when I remember going, early on in my working career, I would find yourself working somewhere, and I was doing a little bit of temping work, and I got into an office and I said, "Oh, what's the process?" And the lady looked at me like strangely, like, what process? Like, and it's just, and I equally looked at her as strangely, thinking, what do you mean you don't have a process? Like, it just didn't compute, and it's not how my brain works. And it's not that I like processes so that I know where, that I'm a real stickler or anything like that. There's definitely room to move around in that, but I like having everything laid out so that someone can just go and do it, and obviously come back when we have, especially when you're training up new people, but come back to me if they have any questions, and we can work through it together. But there needs to be able to do this. So sometimes, we have 5-6 projects going on at a time, obviously at different stages. There needs to be a process there for us to be able to communicate as a team, for us to be able to communicate with the client if an issue arises, to identify which stage people are at. Like, it all has to kind of come together, and it didn't all happen at once. It just kind of happened bit by bit, quite organically. But I think that's where my nerdy brain goes to, and I love it.
I have to geek out with you on another part of your nerdy brain, which is what you said earlier in this conversation from your corporate background, which had to do with outcomes.
Yeah.
So in online education or information products or, membership content, premium content, there's this whole knowledge thing, like premium content. There's like great ideas, curated well, like great information. That's a given these days. But results and outcomes are really more, in many ways, almost more important than the actual content itself. How do you, based on your experience from corporate or just in your own way of developing and your skills and your offer here, like, how do you help experts help people not just get great information, but get to outcomes?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And focusing on the outcome is the only thing that matters. So when I say outcome, I'm not talking result, because when people sometimes think of a result, they're thinking of a result that's monetary. Now, that's how I differentiate the two. I'm not really into that kind of hypey marketing where it's like, oh, get a X amount in 30 days or something like this. It just doesn't happen. It's just rubbish. Chuck it out the window. Chuck the course out the window. But outcomes focused courses really focus in on taking the person from where they are right now, the struggle and the problem that they are having, to the solution and what they actually want. And what they want, yes, might be monetary, but at the core of it, it normally isn't. It's like, I actually just want to feel better, or I want to have a pathway to be more fit. Like, just guide me to that, guide me on those steps and that journey to get to that outcome. So and that's the only thing that matters for us as a team, like focusing in on the outcome and taking them from where they are right now to that point, so that at least that can be broken down in stages. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, you know, you're going to promise that person the world. Like, don't do that if you're not going to do that. Like, just if you can't. So yeah, focusing on the outcome is the only thing that kind of matters and is in the most important, because with an outcome, you can't write any form of marketing or sales message or something like that, but don't make it hypey and based on money, because that's not always the most important thing, and you're actually leading people down a path to disappointment and the fact that they actually won't complete it as well if you hang everything about your course or mastermind or program or whatever based on money. That's what I found anyway.
That's beautiful. Janet Kafadar, ladies and gentlemen, that's JanetKafadar.com. Check her out. She's got a quiz on her website. Can you tell us about the quiz?
Yes, yeah, it's janetkafadar.com/quiz, and it's a course journey quiz. So if you're kind of stuck with whereabouts you are and what you need to do, and you know the next steps that you need to take to be able to create your course, then just go ahead and take the quiz. It will ask you just, I think it's 5 or 6 questions, and then you'll be given 2 action steps to be able to help move you forward, along with a couple of videos as well. So this has kind of come after 4 years of working and basically what I've seen from talking to hundreds of people, and I've put that all into a quiz to help give you the right steps and what you need to do.
That's beautiful. For those of you listening, you have to wear many hats as a course creator. You have to be an expert. You have to be an entrepreneur. You have to be a teacher, an instructional designer, a technologist, and a community builder. Those qualities are very rarely found in one person. If you need help with the teaching and the instructional design and strategy, it's Janet. As soon as I heard her on some other shows, I knew I had to get her on here and help share some of her wisdom with you all. So Janet, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Is there?
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. Is there anywhere else people can connect with you?
Yeah, so you can also connect with me on my YouTube channel, Course Creators TV, and I do video tutorials and platform reviews, and I'll also do one for Lifter as well. Do reviews of platforms and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can find me on Course Creators TV, or even if you just type in Janet Kafadar to any social media platform, you'll find me there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Janet. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it.